Hi, this is David Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, as always, thank you for your participation. And thank you to those who sponsor. We have, Baruch Hashem, had almost all the podcasts sponsored this past year. And this one is sponsored once again by my good friend Anonymous. Thank you. Thank you, Anonymous. You have probably sponsored more podcasts than anybody in the history of the show. And this podcast, he's doing it. Number one is L'schus Refuah Shlema L'choli Yisrael. For all of the sick people in Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should send them a Refuah Shlema B'mheira. And thank you so much for all the chizuk you give, the spirits you uplift, and the valuable Torah insights you give over. My pleasure. I have to tell you, it's people like you who sponsor this podcast and people who respond and say that the podcast has meaning to them and that they enjoy it that really gives me the chiyus and the opportunity to be able to do this podcast because, the feedback really means a lot, and to know that people are actually participating. There's no way I've given up. There's no way I can track my numbers. But I keep meeting people from all over who tell me that they listen. I should really ask them where they listen so I could maybe try to track something down. But to all of you out there, thank you. Thank you for being part of our kehillah, part of our community. Okay, we're talking about Tefila. Yeah, Tefila is such an important thing. This is the point I've been stressing, and it's particularly important during these times. There's a machlekes between the Rambam and the Ramban whether or not davening is the Oraisa or the Rabbanan. But even those who hold it to the Rabbanan agree that in Eis Tzara, at a time of trouble, there's definitely a mitzvah to daven. And I don't think there's anybody who would say we're not in a difficult time. I don't want to review events, but if you go over what's happening in the United States, in Israel, in Australia, in so many places in the world, and you look at the terrible matzav that we're in, it is mafchid, it's scary. So we need to daven, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this series, the power of Yishmael is Yishmael, that Hashem will hear his voice. And so, so it comes down to a battle of tefillah, of who's going to be able to use their koyach of kol, their voice better than the other. And we need to work on our tefillah. So, last episode, we discussed that there are 3 different types of things that you can do with tefillah. The first one is shevach. That's what we talked about last time. Praising Hashem, which means figuring out how to have a sense of awe, to go wow of everything in the Bria. They used to say about Avigdor Miller, that you could see him standing on a street in Brooklyn surrounded by Talmidim. And if you drew closer, he was holding in his hand apple seeds. And he was describing the miraculousness of planting that seed and getting a tree and the fruit that grow and how it's sweet. And it comes with a peel that's color-coded to tell you when it's ready. And all the different things that go into just something as simple from our point of view as planting a seed, and the miracles that go into it, and all of the power that's that comes out of that. I don't know if I mentioned this, but Isaac Bashevis Singer, the Yiddish writer, his father was a Rav in Warsaw. He put out a book called In My Father's Court, where he talked about what it was like watching his father as a Rav in Warsaw and grow up. And there's so many fascinating stories that give you insight. But there was one story I remember where this couple was engaged and they got into some kind of a fight. And anyway, they sent him a shalach manis where they made a hamantash and they baked into it some type of manure. I don't know what animal excrement they put into it, but they put that into it. And of course, there was outrage. And the two sides were at each other's throats, and eventually they come to the Rav. And the Rav didn't address the machlekes. He didn't talk about the fact that someone could do something like this, or the hurt feelings, or what inspired the other side to do something like this. He said, do you know what goes into making dough that you destroyed? And he talks about the plowing and the planting and the harvesting and the threshing and all the things and all of the nisim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into the creation until we finally have a piece of bread. How could you be mavaza a piece of bread? He says the two sides walked away. They realized that it didn't matter what their machlekes was. They were missing the point when you realize HaKadosh Baruch Hu's greatness. So that's the idea of Shevach. The next type of tefillah you can do is called haida'ah, which is to say thank you. Understand that a person who cannot say thank you will never appreciate anything in this world. My good friend Pesach Krohn tells a story about this woman who brings her child into a fruit store. And the owner sees the little boy and gives him a banana. And the mommy says, what do you say? And he said, peel it. That's the appreciation. When I used to travel and my children were young, so I would go to America and I'd bring back all kinds of different things, clothing and toys and stuff. It was always a major undertaking. And at the end, we'd unpack and we'd unload everything for the children. And the little kids were holding a pile. It was coming up over their head. And my wife would say, what do you say to Abba? Says, is there anything else? Was that it? I remember seeing a bumper sticker back in the 80s that said, God, what have you done for me lately? Yeah, it's going to be sad because there's no sense of appreciation. You know this. When a kid says to a parent, as kids sometimes do, you've never done anything for me. An amazing concept. And I encourage kids, sit down and just calculate how much money your parents have spent on you from the time you were born. Just how much money's involved. Getting a crib and getting a carriage and getting a car seat and getting all those children's clothes, and baby food and formula and diapers. You know how many diapers a kid goes through? Forget about all the effort that went into it. Just work out the money. And then all the tuitions, and then all the health care, and then all the extra activities. At the end, the kid could turn around to their parents and say, you've never done anything for me? How many nights they were up with you and you were crying? All the things that they had to do. But it doesn't make a difference. I mean, that a person could even look at that way without a sense of appreciation. I was not a good son. I can say that. I don't know if my parents would have said it. Yeah, maybe my dad. But I definitely wasn't a good son. If I had any level of appreciation when I was a kid of everything my parents had done for me and everything that they did and the pride that my father took in the fact that he was able to help his children. And he would say that all the time. So happy I can help my children. Because his father gave nothing. He was totally self-made. And when I stopped to think, and I often wonder if I was my father, if I knew everything I knew, if I would have had these kids. So my father would have, But you wonder, You go through all the effort of having children, and then and everything you do for them in the end, they can turn around and say, you've never done anything for me. Yeah. Astounding thing. Without haida'ah, without appreciation, nothing has any meaning to you. Before you can talk about what I'm lacking, first stop and appreciate what you have. There was a woman I know, she had several children, and she wanted to get pregnant again, and she was having a lot of difficulties, and she was so angry at HaKadosh Baruch Hu. She was angry, she was upset. Let's say she was sad, disappointed, but whatever it was definitely kindness on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I said, let me teach you something. As a parent, when you give something to a kid and that kid appreciates it, thank you so much, Abba. This was so nice of you. Oh, it's so nice, so wonderful. It makes you want to do something else for them. And it's an unusual experience, as parents will tell you. You know, when a kid will sit down with you and say, I want to tell you how much I appreciate what you've done for me. I mean, you've given me, and I had one kid once do this, you know, I don't know what she wanted, but I'll go so far as to say it was sincere. What do you think of that? Cynic that I am. She says, well, you know, you and Abba have given me such a gifted life. I was able to do this, and I was able to do that, and I was able to do, you know. Baruch Hashem, I was able to do things for my kids that a lot of people can't do. You know, my mother would come Sukkot, and she would stay in the Renaissance in Yerushalayim. And she knew that I would only sleep in a sukkah. So she got one of the suites on the 12th floor and had them build a sukkah so I could go up there and sleep. And my family spent, if not sukkahs, but certainly yontif of sukkahs in a hotel. Catered meals and and going swimming and all the accoutrements that go with that. Not every kid gets to do that. My kids have gotten more than their fair share of trips to America. Very often, I'm able to go on a speaking tour. There was one summer I took the kids to America. We did all kinds of things, and I paid for it by my various speaking engagements. And I was able to take them to America and take them to, all kinds of exciting and interesting places that most kids in Israel, their age, don't have an opportunity to do. And Baruch Hashem. And when someone sits down and says, wow, you do this for me and this for me and this for me, it gives you a sense of, gee, I'd like to do more. Because I know that the person appreciates it. But if whatever you do is worth nothing, so I said to this lady, before telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu how disappointed you are in him for not giving you another kid, how about thanking him for all the kids that you do have? It changes your whole perspective. And instead of looking at all the things you don't have, look at all the things you do have. And this is a piece of advice that I've seen other places since, but I've been giving this advice for well on 30 years. I wrote it when I had a chinuch column in the Hamodia, and people told me it was meaningful. I used to speak on a radio program here in Eretz Show, and I gave the Eitzah, and people told me afterwards that they used it, and it helped them change their lives. And I've spoken about it in shiurim many occasions. I know it changed my life, and I got feedback from a lot of people saying, I tried it and it changed my life as well. So I give you the Eitzah. We say, and this is really another aspect of Tefillah, but one of the reasons that people don't find Tefillah meaningful is they don't know what they're saying. So people say to me, what do you mean? I've got an art scroll. I said, good. So it used to be you didn't know what you were saying in Hebrew. Now you don't know what you're saying in English. Because it's not a translation that you need. It's to be able to take the words and give them a pshat that's meaningful to you. That's why we daven with the words that were written by the Anshe Knesset Gedola, because they had Nevi'im among them. So it's filled with prophetic meaning. So whatever you're feeling and wherever you're coming from, the words have that ability to be able to express if you're happy, if you're sad, if you're angry, if you're disappointed, if you're desperate. The words, the same words can express all of those things. That's the power of the words. That's what helps when you have it written by a prophet. A person said to me, I would rather daven by myself. I said, go ahead. Go ahead, start. Let's see if you can get through 10 minutes without repeating yourself. Almost impossible. To be able to compose something that has meaning forever, this is always the problem. When you create something new to fit a particular purpose at that particular time, the odds of it having eternal meaning is very slight. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid in school, the early 70s, so there was the Student Struggle for Soviet Jewry, SSJ. And that was one of the organizations that were working to help free Russian Jews. And I would demonstrate. Sometimes the school would take us to demonstrate outside of the Russian consulate in Glen Cove, Long Island. 2468, open up the iron gate. Yeah. 2468, let our people emigrate. So, Swaboda, freedom, Swaboda. Yeah, okay, so used to demonstrate. But there was this attempt to raise the consciousness of people about Soviet Jewry. So they came up with this idea of adding a fourth matzah to the Seder, the matzah of hope. What a ridiculous concept, as if there are not enough ideas of freedom tied into matzah. Oh, we have to add another matzah to remind us that there are people who are unable to leave their country and their civil rights are being stripped away. Like matzah itself, yeah, Zman Cheruseinu, the entire Pesach, all of this emphasis on Me'avdus L'Cheres isn't enough. I have to add on another matzah. Now, it's not going to have any meaning, obviously, because it's something that you came up with now to be able to add meaning to something that doesn't have any meaning. It's a meaningless ritual. And that's what happens when people come up with new things. Got to be very careful. In Hanukkah, the Gemara is very meduyak. It tells the whole story of Hanukkah, and then it says, and the next year, the Chachamim made it into a holiday. What do you mean the next year? Because they waited a year to see if this was a one-time miracle, or if there was a power built into the Bria, into creation on that day, that there was a power of bringing light back into the world, that this miracle revealed, but not that it was the source, that there was a power. And they started to find all kinds of references. The 25th word in the Torah is Or, which alludes to the 25th of Kislev. There are 25 letters in Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. 24 in Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Va'ed. A certain progression that takes place. And they started to find all kinds of different things that was being alluded to here. B'nei bina yemei shmona kavu shiurinanim. B'nei bina, not just those who are smart, but bina mevin dava tochtava, who could understand inside of things. The Medrash says that when they started building the Mishkan, they finished building it on the 25th of Kislev. And they could have put it up then, but Moshe Rabbeinu told them they have to wait till Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But there was a certain level of dedication that was built into that date. So they saw it wasn't just something. So the words have particular meaning. So I always say, if you're not appreciating the davening, it's because you don't know what the words mean. I said, well, I have I have an English translation. An English translation doesn't help you. Lahodos, lahalel, l'shabech, l'fael, l'romem, lahadel, l'verechol, le'ol kales. To give thanks, to praise, to laud, to extol, to exalt, to glorify, to raise. Does that have any more meaning to you than it did in Hebrew than it did in English? Because someone opened up a thesaurus and copied out a list of words that mean praise? It doesn't tell you any more than you knew beforehand. An English translation doesn't do anything for you. So, my approach to tefillah is different than some people because I have ADD. My mind wanders. It's very hard for me. Interestingly enough, I spoke to people how to be able to daven because if I try to do it the regular way, okay, Avraham. Oh, I have a friend, Avraham. Wonder what he's doing now. Where is he? What's happening? Sorry. Okay, Avraham took his son up onto Har Moriah, the base of Mikdash. All we have left now is the Kaisel. I really haven't gone to the Kaisel. It's been a while. When should I go? Where am I going to park? I guess I'll park in Mamilla. Oh, there's a place over there I can get coffee. You know, and it goes on like this. So I have a real problem. It's a problem if you have ADD, you know. How many kids with ADD does it take to change a light bulb? Want to ride my bike? So it's hard to keep concentration. So the advice that I got from people said, daven quickly. So you don't have time to let your mind wander, right? But of course, by the time you reach the end of Shemona Esrei, you know, I don't have to be saying Shemona Esrei. I should be saying Tefillah Saderech. I've traveled all around the world already and flown around the place. It's a real challenge for me. When I reach the end of davening, it's kind of hard that I'm still into it. So there are people who give this eitzah by modim. But for me, the odds of me still being able to focus by modim is much less. I'm able to work harder on the first bracha and try to keep my concentration. So in the first bracha, you come to the words, Gomel chasodim tovim v'konei hakol. So look in the English. He bestows loving kindness and is master of all. Okay. So how am I kona those words? How do I make those words my words? So I say, Gomel chasodim tovim, like what? And I try to think of something good that a Kadosh Baruch Hu has done for me lately. And I try not to repeat myself. I come up with 3 things every single day. V'konei hakol, and it all comes from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Now, when I first started out, it was kind of artificial. Thank you, I can see. Thank you, I have clothes. Thank you, I can stand. You know, we have brachas on those already. You know, I'm Baruch Hashem, I still have hair, and not everyone can do that one. You know, but family simcha, and I said once, I said we Orlofskys, we all have our hair. We all have heart disease and diabetes, but we all have our hair. You know. So at one of my family simchas, one of my son-in-laws said, I may not have my hair, but I don't have diabetes and heart disease, so you choose. For sure, I'll take my hair. But anyway, so it's what we call misplaced priorities. But anyway, so when my son had Yena Machla and he was in chemotherapy, he lost all of his hair. That was a really weird event for everybody in the family because we weren't used to having bald people around. So and he got one of those big yarmulkes. It was meaningful. You could do the curly shuffle. Anyway, so you look at the good things, right? So then you start looking around. Okay, I ran out of my list. You know, I have a stender. Oh, wood's a good thing. Thanks for wood. You know, windows, glass. That was a great idea. You know, stained glass. Oh, that was a good idea too. You know, and I'm starting to look around. I remember for me the turning point was I went to speak for this school that has kids with all kinds of special needs, physical and mental, and I went down to look at the school. I was going to be speaking on their behalf, and I saw there was one kid that kept putting drops in his eyes. And I said, what's that? And they said, his eyes don't make tears. And I davened mincha, and I came to Gomel Chasadim Tovim, and I said, Baruch Hashem, my eyes make tears. And suddenly I realized all of the things that were going on in my life that I could see every day. I didn't have to, while davening, look around and search for something. Full disclosure, today I often cheat. I don't know what to choose. I don't know what to choose. I go to Osha'ad. It's one of the reasons I have high blood pressure. Yeah? Osha'ad is this giant supermarket here in Israel. It's really challenging. It's a challenging experience. Before Yontif, the cars are around the block. Yeah, I pulled in Osha'ad. I found a great parking spot right away. I found a car right away. Didn't have to put in a coin. I got through my shopping pretty quick, and I came, and there was an empty line. And I checked out right away. I got to the house, and one of my kids was upstairs waiting to help me with the packages. And I came to Mincha. I didn't know which one to choose. Chasodim went on for me just in the course. And sometimes I look at it and I say, when something bad happened, how it could have been so much worse. And so you say, wow, what a chesed that happened. And it could have been worse. And it should have been worse. So you slowly start to live a different life. Because 3 times a day, 365 days a year, I've been doing this for close to 20 years. You make the cheshbon. I can't, too big of a number for me, but how many chasodim I was able to say, look what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for me. Stephen Covey, in the 7 Habits of Effective People, Highly Effective People, he writes that there's something called an emotional bank account. A person can make a mistake. A person makes a mistake with their kids or in any relationship, and that's a withdrawal on the emotional bank account, and you can do that as long as you've made enough contributions. As long as there's enough deposits in the bank, then you have what to draw in order to take out. But if the account is empty, you're moving into overdraft, that's going to hurt your relationship. That's a famous story with Dovid Feinstein, where his father missed his bar mitzvah to go to the Aguda convention. He felt for Klal Yisrael he had to go. And someone asked him, were you upset? And he said, no. No, because I knew my father loved me. And he said, how did you know your father loved you? He says, every morning he would get me dressed, and it was cold. I was under the blankets. So he would put my clothing on the radiator first to warm up, and then he would get me dressed under the covers. My father was a gadol ador. You can imagine there were many chashuvim who came to our Shabbos Suda, but no matter who came, I always had my seat by my father's right side. He never kicked me out of my seat. And when we went to the bungalow colony, we didn't have a bungalow colony back then. It was like a farm, just to get you out of the heat of the city. And there was nothing to do. There were no facilities. There was no day camp. There was no pool. The only fun thing is when the farmer would take his little cart and go into town for supplies, so all the children would jump into the cart, and that was their ride. It says, if I was learning with my father and he heard the tractor, he closed the Gemara and he says, go with the other children. Now, missing your kid's bar mitzvah is pretty dramatic, but he didn't feel hurt because there was enough deposits in the emotional bank account. I would be lying if I said nothing ever goes wrong in my life. Of course things go wrong in my life. Of course, we've had I don't want to say more than our share, but we've had our share of difficulties on all kinds of different levels, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And I'm able to weather them because I've made so many deposits in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's account, because every day I look at least 3 wonderful things that he's done for me. So when you have a sense of appreciation, your whole life is different. I live a blessed life. And I talk to people who are always sad and always nervous, and things are so terrible for them and things are so difficult for them. You know why? Because they don't have anything good going on in their life. You know why? Because they've never stopped to look for it. Says Dovid HaMelech, Yasi Yasrani Ka V'Lamavas Lo Nisanani. I've had a life of suffering and pain, but I'm still alive. I say it and people really think I'm kidding. They don't believe it. But I really mean it. People see me and they say, how you doing? I say, Baruch Hashem. You know, so they give that line, you know, oh, okay, now I know you're religious, but how are you doing? I said, no, Baruch Hashem. I died 7 years ago. 2 major doctors told me, I don't know why you're still alive. The guy who did the angiogram on me said, you're not getting enough blood to the heart to keep you alive. You should be dead. I don't know why you're alive. The surgeon who did the operation said that my arteries had been dead for so long that they got reabsorbed into the heart, he couldn't even bypass them. He just knew from experience where they should have been, and he was able to extract them to be able to bypass. Otherwise, that's it. I'd be dead. So 2 major doctors told me I should be dead. Kinireh, they were wrong. Or they were right. I should be dead. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu miraculously kept me alive. So every morning I wake up, it's overtime. I'm not supposed to be here. I tell this to my wife all the time. I say, listen, if I would have died 7 years ago, I think that would have really lowered your quality of life. I got to open for discussion, but I said, just that terrible moment at every simcha. And we know that Abba is with us here up in Shemayim, and I'm sure he's looking down and participating in the simcha. You know, I do that for my parents. I do it for my father-in-law. You know, it's so hard. So much better when they're there. Imagine if I wasn't here. So I wake up every morning. I may not think about it when I first wake up because I'm crying because I don't want to get out of bed. But at some point I say, I'm still alive. It's a gift. Every single day is a gift. That's why it's called the present. So what else do I have to ask for? Everything else that happens during the day is gravy. But if you sit down and you look at all the chasodim, every single day, v'chol zman, v'chol eis, v'chol sha'ah, every moment, kol neshama tehalel ka, al kol neshima v'neshima. I watched my father in his last moments. He had lung cancer, and the blood clots were growing in his lung so quickly they couldn't get rid of them. He was drowning. And every breath was just trying to get the effort to keep breathing. Every breath you take, it's a wonderful thing. But we don't look at the good things. We say, what else did you get me? What have you done for me lately? Is that it? Peel it. We don't think of all the chasodim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us. So then we think, oh, God doesn't do anything for us. Haidah is such an important part of Tefillah because the more you say thank you, the more you enjoy everything that you have. So next time we're going to talk about Bakosha, which, as I mentioned at the beginning, is how most people daven. They ask. So we'll talk about that. But now we come to that part of the program, the new additional program where we answer questions. The last time I answered one question, and I realized I don't really think I did justice to it. What's your favorite food? Unfortunately, there are too many of them. I listed a few, but then I started thinking, what about this? What about that? A better question is, what don't you like to eat? And I have to admit, that's a much smaller list. And a lot of the things that I don't eat, I really have never really tasted. I don't know why. That's just something I find very off-putting about it. Borscht. Now, I don't even know what a fresh pot of borscht would look like, but we used to buy those bottled borscht and with gold borscht. There was something about it I found extremely unappealing, although given a choice, I would eat that before I would eat shav. I don't know what shav is even. I just know we would buy sometimes this jar with this greenish yellow goo in it. And it looked like a science experiment. I've never eaten shav, so I don't really know. And like I say, I don't know. So I can't really say for sure. I'm not a fan of livers. I like chopped liver, but whole livers, the texture doesn't appeal to me. I don't eat tongue. I don't really have a good reason for it, except I'm always uncomfortable eating something that I feel like is tasting me back. So when you're eating something that has taste buds, it just kind of freaks me out. Yeah. There are things like that I'm not a fan. I don't really get into pizza. I've never really gotten into pizza. I don't have a really good reason for it, except that it's basically bread with sauce and cheese, and I might as well just have pasta, which is softer bread with cheese. But hey, what else? Oh, there are certain things that I don't particularly enjoy. I don't like drinking vinegar. When you have an upset stomach, sometimes they tell you to drink apple cider vinegar. I don't enjoy that at all. Full disclosure. So yeah, there are certain there like a much smaller category of foods that I don't enjoy than the ones that I do enjoy. Sushi, I don't get sushi. I don't understand sushi. I kol kavod to those who enjoy it. I know it's a phenomena, but it doesn't speak to me. Cold jellied aspic, like pacha, things like that. That doesn't speak to me. Yeah. I used to not like chickpeas. I still don't really care for chickpeas. When I have a salad or something with chickpeas, I tend to leave them over, or a soup. I'm not a fan of chickpeas. Until Purim, I went to Rav Moshe Shapiro Zatzal's house. I would sit by the Suda there. It wasn't the Suda, it was a Kabbalah's Ponim, really more. He had the Suda afterwards. But his Rebbetzin made these arbis, made this chickpeas, just delicious. It really made me reevaluate. I'm not a fan of cholent. When I was younger, it was easier for me to eat, but now it always has ill effects, and I don't find that the taste is worth the physical pain that goes. If I'm going to do that already, I'd rather eat American Frankfurters or falafel, which also I will pay for days afterwards. But I find that the investment in terms of taiva is a better use of the pain-pleasure principle that's being applied. Anyway, so you can see the list of things that I don't like is much smaller than the list that I do like. Yeah. Who's your favorite superhero from either DC or Marvel Comics? All right, that's a tough one. When you say favorite, so does it mean who you like reading? Again, I did this as a kid. So, full disclosure, I couldn't relate to many of the superheroes with all kinds of weird powers. Yeah. Superman, Green Lantern, Flash, Aquaman, they were outside of my frame of reference. Yeah. Batman, but he's a psychopath. He's clearly a psychopath. He went crazy when his parents were shot in front of him, and he's a crazy person, dresses up like a bat and fights crazy people. So I didn't really relate to him too much. Marvel nobody liked Marvel when I was a kid. DC was the comics, so Marvel was there too, but the Hulk, anybody really relates to the Hulk? Thor, the Norse god. I mean, come on, Of all the superheroes, the only one as a kid that I related to was Spider-Man, for two reasons. One is Spider-Man was a kid. Everybody else were adults. He was a kid. He was the only kid superhero. And what I liked about him was he was reluctant. He didn't want to be a superhero. He just knew that when he didn't use his powers to help people, his uncle got killed and there were bad consequences, so he carries that guilt with him, but he would much rather not be a superhero. And there were a whole bunch of story arcs where he tried to get rid of his power. because he didn't want it. It just causes trouble for him. It causes trouble in his relationships. It causes trouble in his career, his education. Everything is messed up because he has these powers that he has to use to help people, and he doesn't want to. And that had meaning to me, because that to me is the story of the Jewish people. The Jewish people have been given powers and abilities far beyond those of other people. And we're told to be Am HaNivchar, and we're responsible for the world. And even if we don't want it, it doesn't help us. We have to go out and we have to help the world and make it a better place. It's part of our responsibility. When are you coming to the U.S.? Well, this I do know. I was just booked to speak at the Project Inspire convention in February. So I will be coming in February. If I get any other offers to speak anywhere, Kenzan, I'll come in earlier. But right now, I know for sure that at the end of February, I'm coming. If anybody would like to see me, or we want to plan any events around then, it would be around the end of February. What happened to the Rabbi Orlofsky show sign? You know, we're going to put in the highlight reel from the first season, and you see the emphasis that was placed on the Rabbi Orlofsky sign. What happened to it? Well, full disclosure, I'm not really responsible for that. That's the producer. And I asked Mikhail what happened to the sign, and he said, if you watch 2 podcasts ago, you will see that there was a whale that went across the bookcase, and it ate the Rabbi Orlofsky sign. What are you going to do? And we'll finish with this one. Are there any other speakers other than yourself whose shiurim you enjoy listening to? Very important question, other than yourself. I'm a terrible audience. Sometimes people tell me, wow, you know, I have trouble, keeping my attention when speakers go, but I can listen to you. You're such a good speaker. And I said, I'm not such a good speaker. I'm such a poor listener. And if it's not interesting, I'll fall asleep in the middle of my speech, because if I don't enjoy it. And that's why people say, why do you laugh at your own jokes? Because I enjoy them. That's why, because I may be having the best time of everyone. Sometimes I'll tell jokes just for myself. I know nobody knows what I'm talking about. I don't really care. But I get a kick out of it. So yeah, I do enjoy listening to myself. And other speakers are really hard. Now, this is a difficult question, because I'm going to leave out people just by nature. There's so many speakers, and I can't remember everything. And I'm filming in the Rabbi Orlofsky studio, so my wife's not here to prompt me off camera and say, oh yeah, right, I forgot. But my good friend Pesach Krohn, he just rips your heart out. He makes you laugh. He makes you cry. He has so much energy. It just blows you across the room. On occasion, I've spoken in the White Shul, and Rabbi Eitan Feiner would introduce me. And I would get up to speak, and I'd say, you heard more sources quoted in that 5-minute introduction than you're going to hear in my entire hour lecture. The guy is just too darn smart. What am I going to tell you? My good friend, Rabbi Y.Y. Rubenstein, who I've pointed this out in the past, that often when I'm speaking, I'm advertised as the funniest rabbi in the world. And I always point out that title really belongs to Rabbi Y.Y. He's much funnier than I am. Yeah. I'm perhaps more sardonic. Having said that, I definitely don't have the vocabulary of my good friend Hanoch Teller, who uses a whole bunch of big words. You know what I'm saying? I'll tell you a Hanoch Teller story. He went to renew his passport, his visa. He was still on a tourist visa. He'd been here for many years. And the woman was being particularly unpleasant. And he said, why? Because I can't stand you Haredim. You're all a bunch of burim. It's like uncultured. And Hanoch says, what do you mean? He says, you don't know history. You don't know Tzionut. Now, she really picked the wrong guy. So So he says, listen, I have a contest. Says, you ask me 3 questions on history and 3 questions on Tzionut and see if I know it. And I'll ask you 3 questions on history and 3 questions on Tzionut and see if you know them. Anyway, he answered all of her questions. She couldn't answer her questions on history or Tzionut or Zionism. He was trained by Yad Vashem to give tours. Not everybody is trained. Some people give tours and they didn't have the training. He had the training. And he told me there's a famous historian. He was sitting in his shir, and when he'd make references to the Holocaust, he would afterwards leave a little page of notes that he wrote of corrections on things that he had said. So that's an adventure. I was on a speaking tour once with Rabbi Tatz, and we both gave the same speech 8 times in different cities. And at the end, I said, I want you to appreciate the greatness of Rabbi Tatz, that even though he spoke first, he could leave now, and he stays as a covered to listen to my speech. I listen to his speech, but that's because I have no idea what he's talking about. And each time I listen, I get a little bit more of an insight. So he has this depth to him that you have to constantly unpeel the layers and layers to be able to get down to the depth of it. I told you I'm going to forget people, but I'm a big Rabbi Leff fan from Moshav Matisyahu. He has a certain power to him. Rabbi Wein, I'm always amazed because if I tried to speak like Rabbi Wein, people would kill me. He has this way of speaking with a certain folksy gravitas that I can't possibly hope to be able to emulate. Now, when I was growing up in Chicago, and this is a long time ago, I used to teach history and now I am history. So I would go to school. And the best is when you get Rabbi Wein and Pesach Kron together, because if you put the 2 of them together, you have basically the speed that I speak at. So I'm forgetting people, of course. I'm always going to forget people. I told you that up front. My Rabbi Orlofsky, extremely engaging. And of course, I had the schus to hear shiurim by Rabbi Moshe Shapiro. And he had this mesmerizing character strictly because of the content of what he was saying. It wasn't because he was a polished speaker per se, and that he was, following any of the rules of speaking. He just, the fact that you had the schus to be able to hear from him was amazing. Okay, well, as they used to say back in the 1950s, keep those cards and letters coming, and we'll have more questions that we will answer next time. In the meantime, if you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave a comment. You can contact me directly. You can sponsor an episode. You can sign up for one of our online shiurim, either Daf Yomi or one of the Mesilas Yesharim shiurim. Someone just wrote me and said, maybe you should start a online Musa class and call it a Vodcast. Because I explained 2 shows against a Vodcast, V-O-D, so make it a Vad, V-A-A-D, Vodcast. So I responded, of course, humorlessly and said, I already have that. It's called Mesilas Yesharim. You can sign up for it if you like. That's my Vodcast. Anyway, you could submit a question. And that's it for now. I'm Dovid Orlofsky, and this is and has been the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky